In a noisy office filled with the sounds of ringing phones and conversations, John, was busily working as usual. Shoot, the time for the business meeting is getting close. I need to leave as soon as I finish this quote. Yes, don't. I hurriedly clicked the print button on my computer screen and went to collect the printed document from the printer. Then, I quickly took it to my boss, Michelle. Michelle, could you sign the estimate on the quote, please? My female boss, seated at her desk, is named Michelle. She's top in sales performance in the company and was promoted to manager at the young age of 32. Michelle, a graduate from an elite university, is competent and expected to be a candidate for the board of directors. Not only is she intelligent, but she's also beautiful with good looks and has a great figure, though she rarely smiles and is very strict with her subordinates. Especially with me, I feel the cold shoulder more than with other colleagues. Michelle silently took the quote from me, glanced at it, and frowned. The next moment, she yelled loud enough to echo across the floor. Come on, there's an extra zero, redo it. Oh, you're right, sorry. Really, at your age, making such a simple mistake, you're hopeless. That's why you're still a contract worker in your 40s. She said that with a look of disbelief and sighed. As a contract worker, you don't get bonuses, right? At this rate, you might never get married. I was even criticized about things unrelated to work. She's always like this. Ever since she found out I'm a middle school graduate, she's been looking down on me. I hated it, but I couldn't talk back to my boss, even though she's younger. So, I had no choice but to listen silently. The fact that I seem unlikely to get married is true. At 45, I've never had a girlfriend. With neither good looks nor money, I've led a life that's far from being popular. Michelle, beautiful and elite, could never understand this indescribable loneliness. While thinking about this, I bitterly corrected the quote and finally got Michelle to sign it, then headed to the client. The result of the business meeting I went to with such enthusiasm was not good. Sigh, what's wrong with me? I'm always like this. My sales performance is the lowest in the company, and it's a wonder I haven't been fired. As a contract worker, I'm always nervous about losing my job. Not being a permanent employee at this age is probably due to my educational background. Maybe I should have pursued a career as a craftsman. I reflect on my life with regret. I could perhaps become a permanent employee at a small business, but working for a small, unstable company seems riskier than being a contract worker at a large corporation. In this world, I'm grateful just to have a job. When I returned to the office from the business meeting, it was already past regular working hours, and most of the employees had left. I went back to my desk and started working on the report for the day. After that, I prepared the quote and materials for tomorrow's meeting and shut down my computer. It was already past 10 p.m. Here I am, late again. As I gathered my things and left the office, the stars were shining in the sky. Today is Friday, the eve of the weekend. I thought about going somewhere to eat and drink alone, as it would just be lonely going home, so I headed to the downtown area. Walking down the street lined with bars and pubs, I passed groups of college students, groups of office workers, and many couples. I'm so envious. I wish I had a partner too. Even with a small salary and being belittled by my boss, just being with a partner would surely be healing. But unfortunately, I don't have such a person in my life. Not even friends to go out drinking with. Sigh. With a heavy sigh, I entered a nearby pub alone. Welcome, are you dining alone? Yes, alone. Please take a seat at the counter. I was led to the counter and ordered a small drink set for one, a draft beer and a few other snacks. Perhaps because it's Friday night, The pub was full of groups of office workers, all chatting and complaining about work. I drank my beer while watching them from the corner of my eye. Drinking alone, with no one to complain about work to, is just boring. After drinking for about an hour, I left the place. Across the street, pink neon lights were shining. I saw a couple walking arm in arm. Feeling envious, I glanced at them and recognized the woman. Isn't that? It was my boss, Michelle. The man with her was probably in his 60s, with gray hair. Could he be Michelle's partner? Such an age difference, I wondered. That's when it happened. Let go of me. Michelle's voice sounded distressed. What's the harm? You're not some young girl. No need to play hard to get. The man was forcibly holding her shoulder, trying to pull her into a nearby store. Stop it, please. She was struggling to shake off his grip. I instinctively approached them and grabbed the man's arm. Stop it. Can't you see she's uncomfortable? Who are you? Mind your own business. The man glared at me. His face was red and he smelled like alcohol. It's my business. I'm her subordinate. A subordinate? Huh? A guy your age working under a woman like her? Huh? How does it feel being bossed around by a younger woman? The man leaned close to my face, smirking. We're not talking about that right now. Let her go or I'll call the cops. I raised my voice, and people passing by started to gather around, watching from a distance. Noticing them, the man clicked his tongue. Oomph. Just kidding. Who'd take an older woman like you seriously? The man, grumbling in defeat and ignoring his own age, left the scene. Michelle, are you okay? When I asked, Michelle came staggering over, her hand trembling as she tightly grasped the sleeve of my suit. John, thank you, she said in a faint voice. I'm really grateful for your help. I was just coming back from a reunion when this stranger suddenly started bothering me. It was scary. The usual strict and assertive Michelle seemed so fragile today. Then she said, if it's all right with you, can I buy you a drink as a thank you? Her offer surprised me. Why would she, who usually finds something to criticize about me, invite me out for drinks? What's gotten into her? I really don't need a thank you, but she insisted. I won't feel right if I don't. Don't be shy, let's go, and grabbed my arm with both hands, pulling me along. Despite her usual forceful manner, I couldn't help feeling a rush from the sudden closeness. Surely, I couldn't be attracted to such a difficult boss, no matter how beautiful she is. I chided myself inwardly and chuckled at my own thoughts. Then, led by her, I found myself in a small bar. Order whatever you like, she said, and I ordered a bourbon on the rocks. She chose a cocktail. I was just in the mood for more drinks. I feel like I need more alcohol tonight. She smiled slightly, and I asked her, did something happen at the reunion? Nothing major, really. She showed a faintly pained expression, her eyes looking off into the distance. I stayed silent, and she continued. The guy I dated in high school, I found out he's married now. She said this almost like a whisper, then sighed deeply. Do you still have feelings for him, Michelle? I guess. I've always loved him, even after we broke up. You know how it is, right? Your first great love always stays with you somewhere in your heart. She took her cocktail glass and gulped it down. But Michelle, you seem like you'd be popular. Aren't there plenty of good men around? When I asked, she gave a bitter smile. Please, it's not like that. There's no way. I don't meet anyone, and even when I do, they all leave soon. Why's that? I wondered internally if maybe the men realize her difficult personality and leave because of it. But it turned out to be something else. Actually, I'm taking care of my mother at home. I put her in daycare while I'm at work, and I take care of her all night, so I can't go out. I don't have time for dates. She continued. Her mother was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's the year she got my job. Her father and grandparents had already passed away when she was young, so she's been working and caring for her alone. Any romantic prospects end quickly because she can go on dates due to caregiving. I might never get married. It's so frustrating and lonely to see many married people at the reunion, but I want to take care of my mother myself, and my emotions are all mixed up. She stared at her glass as she spoke. I understood her feelings all too well. I get it, Michelle. My dad had an accident when I was in middle school and became partially paralyzed. I've been his caregiver ever since. As I said this, Michelle looked up at me, surprised. My mom wasn't around, so after my dad needed care, I had to start working right after middle school. My grandma would take care of him during the day, but I took over on weekends and at night. I couldn't go out, just worked and cared for him for decades, and by the time he passed, I was already over 40, so I never really experienced youth or love. After I finished, Michelle suddenly started crying. What's wrong, Michelle? John, I'm sorry for being so harsh on you until now. Michelle apologized, wiping her eyes with her palm. I've been irritable because of the caregiving stress, and I took it out on you. I hated myself for it but couldn't stop. But hearing your story, I realize I was really wrong. Seeing her tearful, somehow she seemed adorable, and all the resentment I had built up against her disappeared. I understood the strain of caregiving all too well and could empathize with her lack of mental peace. And I had to admit, I am a bit clueless and prone to annoying mistakes. It's okay, Michelle. I gently patted her back. You know, we're kind of in similar situations. If it's okay with you, would you like to drink together again? If you're worried about your mom, I can come to your place. Let's have a drink at home. When I smiled, she looked surprised and then smiled happily. I'd appreciate that. She firmly grasped my extended hand. Michelle, has your mom gone to bed already? Yes, we had dinner together earlier, and she's probably asleep now. Oh, I got some snacks today. Your favorite cheese and crackers. Saying this, Michelle brought out a dish of cheese and crackers. It looks delicious. I found a rare drink at the liquor store today, so I bought it. Oh, that drink. I just saw a feature about it on TV and was thinking about trying it. Ever since the night I helped my manager, I've been occasionally visiting her place with a bottle of alcohol. We've been enjoying drinks together, with me bringing wine or sake, and pairing them with snacks prepared by Michelle. We've become good drinking buddies. Since we started having these home drinking sessions, Michelle has become much more relaxed at work. Well, my mistakes are still the same. Watching her enjoy her drink at the living room table, I thought she looked really cute. Thinking about what drink to bring next, I felt happy spending enjoyable moments with Michelle. I've always been dumped because I'm not good with words. Because of that, I stayed single until I was 35 and couldn't get married. Then I met Lisa, who was 5 years younger than me. She was assigned to the sales support department where I work as a temporary employee. She's a bright woman with a lovely smile, always treating me kindly even though I'm not good at making jokes. As I was teaching her the job, I started to take an interest in her and became more and more attracted to her. It was the first time I had felt this way, and I had never been treated so kindly by a woman before. I pursued her relentlessly. And finally, we started dating. Lisa was divorced with a 10-year-old daughter, Amy. I told my parents that I was dating her with the intention of marrying her, and although they were worried about me becoming a stepfather, I was determined. I told them there was no one as wonderful as her, and I was sure we would have a happy family together. I had met Amy before we got married, and fortunately, she has really warmed up to me now. And so we got married and started living happily together as a family of 3. Lisa and I decided not to have any more children. Since I was just a regular employee, I couldn't afford to raise many kids, and I thought having one daughter was enough. Our life wasn't rich, but we were happy. Every day, when I come home, my wonderful wife, with the best smile, and my adorable daughter are waiting for me. Just thinking about that gave me the strength to work hard. Then, one day, tragedy struck. It happened 4 years after I married Lisa. She passed away due to an illness. By the time the symptoms showed, it was too late for treatment. Her condition deteriorated rapidly. During her hospitalization, Amy always stayed cheerful and did her best. We started cooking together every day, planning to throw a big party with all of her favorite dishes when her mom came home from the hospital. We believed she would get better. We managed to keep going, just the two of us. Several months after Lisa's hospitalization, when Amy and I had just started to get used to life on our own, it happened. That day, I bought some roses, her favorite flowers, to cheer her up at the hospital. I hoped that showing her the beautiful flowers would cheer her up, even if just a little. But when I arrived, her condition had worsened critically, and she passed away soon after. Suddenly, Amy and I were left alone, stunned. What's going to happen now? I was really worried. And so began my life with just Amy and me. At that time, Amy was in her second year of middle school. It was a difficult period for us. At first, Amy and I were living a normal life, but after a while, I noticed something was off with her. She started to act out against me. I thought it was just a phase at first, but there was a reason behind it. Turns out, Amy was being harassed by her classmates at school. I found out when I happened to see her belongings. Her notebook was filled with hurtful words. Words like "poor girl" from a single father home and middle schooler living with a non-blood related old man were written there. I immediately reported the harassment to the school, but that only made things worse for Amy. She began to treat me even more harshly. Even so, I continued to love her as my own daughter, but my feelings never seemed to reach her. When Amy went to high school, she attended a different school from her classmates, and the harassment stopped. However, she remained cold towards me. Gradually, she started going out at night, and when I tried to talk to her about it, she would throw tantrums or yell at me. Then, as soon as she graduated from high school, Amy left home. She only said, "I'm going to live with my boyfriend, I'll be fine on my own," took her stuff, and left. After that, she rarely answered her phone, and I only occasionally received emails saying she was doing fine. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye, just like that. During that time, Amy never once came back home. Then one day, I was ordered to go to a client's office in a different region. It was a 2-day business trip. After finishing my work for the day, it was already late afternoon. I thought about having a drink back at the hotel. I bought a can of beer and some snacks at a convenience store near my hotel. On my way back, I was lured by a delicious smell. "Oh, is that a hot dog stall? Maybe I'll buy one." "Excuse me, can I get one hot dog?" "Yes, thank you." That's when I saw something shocking. The woman making hot dog in front of me was my daughter, Amy. "Amy, what are you doing here?" Dad." Amy looked thin, and her hair was unkempt. After a moment of surprise, she looked down and said with a bitter smile, "I'm embarrassed to be seen like this after so long. I'm shocked to see you here of all places." As I said that, Amy suddenly teared up, looking like she was about to cry. "What's wrong?" I asked in a hurry. But all she could say was, "I'm sorry." Then I suggested, "I'm staying at a hotel down the street tonight. Why don't you contact me after you finish? Let's talk for a bit." Amy just said, "Okay," and silently started making hot dog again. That night, I received a message from Amy, and we agreed to meet at a diner next to the hotel. When I arrived, Amy was already there, waving at me awkwardly. Sitting down, she seemed tense and kept looking down without saying a word. "So, how have you been? I was worried since I hadn't heard from you in a while," I asked casually. Amy looked sad and said, "I'm sorry. I guess this is my punishment for saying such terrible things to you, Dad." With that, she started to cry. Wondering what had happened, I decided to ask her about it. After leaving home, Amy had moved in with a man she was dating with the intention of marrying. He was 3 years older than her and was involved in music activities. Amy was originally a fan of his, and it seems like she had a big crush on him. However, he cheated on her with another woman, and Amy got dumped. Amy ended up spending a lot of money just to get by, and eventually ran out of savings. After being dumped by him, she couldn't focus on her job anymore and ended up quitting the company she worked for. After some time, she started working at a nearby supermarket and a hot dog stand to make ends meet. But even with that income, life was still a struggle. I was furious with that musician guy and thought about hitting him, but he had vanished, running from debt collectors, and no one knows where he is now. Amy said, crying, "This is all my fault. I brought this upon myself." I told her, "What's done is done. Can't help it. There's a saying about youthful indiscretions. If you don't mind, why don't you come back home? It might be a bit easier for you there." Upon hearing this, Amy showed big tears in her eyes. "But Dad, it feels too convenient to rely on you only when I'm in trouble." Looking sad, Amy said this, and I told her, "Parents are there to be leaned on in tough times. You're my daughter, Amy, so feel free to depend on me as much as you need." Dad, thank you. I'll think about it," Amy replied, wiping her tears with a handkerchief. After that, we chatted about trivial things for a while before parting ways. As a final word, I told Amy, "You can come back home anytime." She smiled and nodded. A few months later, Amy returned home with her belongings. "I decided to come back," she said with a smile. Seeing her, I said, "Welcome back. I've been waiting for you." After that, Amy and I started living together again. It was awkward at first, but after a month, we got used to each other, and Amy even started making jokes. Her once thin body gradually became healthier. I was relieved. Since coming back, Amy has been cooking every day. Her chicken soup, in particular, is outstanding. It has a gentle flavor, somewhat reminiscent of Lisa's chicken soup, sometimes bringing tears to my eyes. Seeing me like that, Amy asked, laughing, "Is it so delicious that you're about to cry?" "Yeah, it's so good it makes me want to cry." Amy laughed heartily, saying, "What's that supposed to mean?" Watching Amy's smile, I truly felt glad she was getting better. After returning home, Amy got a job at a local factory. She worked hard at her job while also doing her best with the household chores. I was really proud of her. Amy, making up for the time we were apart, took care of me in every way possible. Then, one day after 10 years into this life, Amy brought her boyfriend home. It seems he's her superior from the same workplace. He was 5 years older than Amy, a calm and kind-looking man. He greeted me politely, and I instantly felt that this man could make Amy happy. He even mentioned that he was considering marrying Amy. I told him, "Please take good care of Amy." Amy, blushing, said, "Dad, it's too early for that." About 6 months later, Amy was proposed to by him, and they decided to get married. I was a bit sad to see my daughter leave my side, but seeing her happy reassured me. Then, before I knew it, it was the day of the wedding. Amy asked me to walk her down the aisle, and there I was, arm in arm with my daughter, looking like a princess. As we walked, I was so nervous my mind went blank, but then Amy softly spoke to me. "Dad, I was happy because you were my father." When I glanced at my daughter's face, She was looking at me with a beautiful smile, just like Lisa in her younger days. With my vision blurred by tears, I managed to walk with her to the end and smiled at her. Then we took our seats at the reception hall. Looking around, I saw orange roses, my wife's favorite, decorated everywhere. In the center, my daughter, dressed in a pure white gown, was smiling happily. Then a staff member took the microphone and announced, "Now, the bride will read a letter to her parents." Amy stood up and began to speak, looking ahead. "To my mom in heaven, do you remember the promise we made before you passed away?" "Huh?" I looked up. "Mom, when I visited you in the hospital, you taught me how to make Dad's favorite chicken soup, other cooking recipes, and many other things. At that time, you made me promise to take care of Dad until I found someone special. I realized then that you wouldn't be with us much longer." I had no idea they had made such a promise. Amy had been bright every day, knowing that Lisa was going to pass away. Tears overflowed as I learned the truth after decades. I couldn't keep that promise right after Mom passed away. I'm sorry, but I realized Dad, although not good with words, is indeed the kindest and most loving person, just like Mom said. I now understand why Mom fell in love with Dad. Both Amy and I are in tears. "I love you so much, Dad." Her confession, choked with tears, filled my heart with overwhelming emotions. Then, looking ahead, Amy turned to gaze at me. "Dad, I'm getting married. Make sure to wash the laundry and not let it pile up. Put on your pajamas after you get out of the bath. Don't walk around naked, or you'll catch a cold." I watched my daughter, unable to speak through her tears. Then a staff member handed me the microphone, saying, "A few words from the father, please." "Amy, thank you for living with someone like me. I'm grateful. You're getting married now, so you can cry like this. Smile, like you always do." Then I turned to address her husband. "My daughter is a great cook and a very kind person. Please take good care of her. Make sure she's happy." I asked so and heard a strong reply, "Yes, I promise." I had no regrets left. And so, the wedding ended successfully. I truly felt blessed to have been a father to my daughter. I was glad to have married Lisa, and happy to have been Amy's dad. I never knew about such a promise, Lisa, worrying about me until the very end. That's just like you. I sat in an empty room, speaking to my wife's photo. After the wedding, Amy moved in with her husband but still came to my house regularly to help with various things. So, I never felt lonely. Seeing the happy couple always warmed my heart. I continue to wish for Amy's happiness and support her in my own way. And now, I'm excited every day, looking forward to meeting my soon-to-be-born grandchild. "Samantha, you hate me, don't you?" In a drunken moment, I found myself asking this tough question to Samantha, a beautiful department head known for disliking men. I'm embarrassed to be seen that way. Then, she began to reveal a surprising reason for her coldness towards men. "My name is John. I'm 38. I worked in New York after graduating from college, but exhausted by a grueling job, I quit and returned to my hometown. I was drifting for a while, but then my middle school classmate, Mike, invited me to his company saying, 'Come work with us.' I was skeptical, thinking it might be a shady business, but it turned out to be a reliable company, loved by local businesses and corporations, making lighting fixtures for 50 years. At the interview, Mr. Smith, the president, greeted me in work clothes. He was all smiles, a genuinely nice guy. Surprisingly, they served coffee and jelly during the interview, which was informal but ended with a formal "We'll contact you in about a week with the results." So, when they called and asked, "When can you start?" I could hardly believe it and was really happy. This is how I got assigned to sales, and within a month, I felt at home in the company. Most of the employees were locals. Talking with colleagues about family and personal lives, we'd realize connections like my sister might have worked with you at the same part-time job in high school, or I used to live near your house. Has that barbershop closed down? It was a homey place, perfect for me. However, Samantha wasn't a local. She was quite tall, about 5'9". Her striking beauty made her seem unapproachable. She was so competent that she became a department head at 35. Apparently, she had worked at a major company in New York. But her demeanor was extremely aloof. When I submitted work she had requested, she would barely thank me without making eye contact. Yet, she would look at female employees, smile, and say warmly, "Thanks, Olivia, that was quick and really helpful." She might be called a cool beauty, but her attitude towards men and women was starkly different. Her overly formal attitude left me feeling dry. "Samantha hates men," Mike said, drinking his whiskey at a bar. "So she really doesn't like them. Did something happen?" "Well, being that tall, even if she's pretty, she's out of the ordinary." Mike frowned. "True, she's taller than most men, but I think she's attractive." When I expressed this, Mike, looking up at my height, said enviously, "That's because you're taller than Samantha. Hey, you should date her." Indeed, I'm 6 feet tall, taller than Samantha. But regardless, I've always liked tall women. My family is tall, and growing up, I always thought my 5'8" mother was cool. I find tall women attractive. But even if I like her, she might not feel the same about me. I can't just date her. I think Samantha particularly dislikes me. It happened a week ago. I went on a day trip to San Antonio, so I bought some cookies as souvenirs. "I'll leave Samantha's share here," I said, trying to put them on the corner of her desk. Then, she coldly rejected them, saying, "I don't need them." Honestly, I was quite shocked. I made up reasons like she might not like sweets or she's on a diet, just to convince myself. "Indeed, she does seem particularly cold to you. Maybe it's that thing where you're mean to someone you like." Mike made a teasing comment, making me almost spit out my drink as I exclaimed, "What are you talking about? It's only you who's taller than Samantha. Maybe she's cold because she sees you as a man." "That's impossible. There's no way that could be true." "Sure, I'm tall. But I'm not good looking, and lately, I've started to develop a belly. I'm an unremarkable guy who doesn't attract women at all. I thought there's no way Samantha sees me as a man. I had a bit too much to drink yesterday, but I made it to work the next day and focused on my job. Around 3 p.m., having finished my tasks, I was about to catch up on some paperwork when something happened. "Samantha, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake with the order, and they said they need it delivered today." The female employee, nearly in tears, was Amy. She's just 23 but already has a 1-year-old child. "Then, we have no choice but to deliver it directly. Is the product in our warehouse?" Amy replied apologetically. "Yes, it's confirmed, but the delivery location is out of state, a 2-hour drive, and I have to pick up my child, so it's tough for me." Samantha sighed. "Then I'll go. Oh, but I have documents that I must finish by tonight." The usually cool Samantha seemed unusually troubled. I stood up and approached Amy. "I'll go. I'm free right now." "Really?" Amy looked at me with eyes full of gratitude. "Really? That would be a huge help," Samantha said in a soft voice. So, I loaded the products into the car at a warehouse 30 minutes away and set off for the 2-hour drive to the client. "I'm off then," I said, jingling the car keys. "John, please, take care," Samantha said, and she saw me off. I loaded the products successfully at the warehouse and headed to the client. They were an interior design company, scheduled to install lighting fixtures the next day. I arrived after 6 p.m. expecting a grumpy old man to scold me for the order mistake. I was surprised to meet a young and pretty woman in charge. She must have been in her 20s. "I'm so sorry you had to bring this all the way here," she apologized, making me feel awkward. Insisting I take a break, she treated me to coffee and pound cake in the lounge. Her name was Jessica. She was 28 years old and the daughter of the company's president. "I guess you'll be taking over the business someday," I blurted out. "No, I'd rather get married if I find someone willing," she replied with a gentle smile. I thought someone like her would definitely find a good match soon. When I returned to the office, it was past 9 p.m. I didn't expect anyone to be there, but to my surprise, Samantha was still in the sales department. It seemed like she was waiting for me. "I'm sorry for troubling you." "No, I should be thanking you, John. I really appreciate your help." Her tone of sincere gratitude warmed my heart. "Let's head home, shall we?" I turned off the lights in the office and locked up. On our way to the parking lot, Samantha suddenly asked, "Would you like to grab dinner together?" I was surprised. Samantha and I were far from close. In fact, she seemed to have a certain aversion to me. I doubted that two people like us, with such a strained relationship, would have much to talk about over dinner, and it might just end up being awkward. As I hesitated, she said, "Sorry, you can say no if you don't want to." Thinking that declining might hurt her feelings, I cheerfully said, "Let's go. I'm actually really hungry." It was late, so only diners and places serving alcohol were open. Since we had driven, we couldn't drink alcohol, but we decided to go to a popular local grill. By the way, this was also the place where I had drinks with Mike. "Welcome, table for two." Upon entering the restaurant, we were greeted by a delicious, appetizing aroma. My stomach immediately started to rumble. We were led to a small table in the corner. The distance between us was quite close. A soft, flowery scent wafted from Samantha. Maybe it was her shampoo. Being so conscious of her femininity, I felt strangely excited. "What would you like to drink?" When the waiter approached us, I ordered Coca-Cola. But Samantha said, "Actually, I do want a drink. John, will you join me? We can call a cab for the car." I didn't know she liked alcohol that much and smiled wryly. "Of course, I'll keep you company until we're both tipsy." So, we ordered beer. Somehow, I think we both expected we would end up drinking. Otherwise, why choose a grill? After the first beer, we switched to wine. Samantha and I surprisingly had the same taste in alcohol. As we recommended our favorite brands to each other, we both got quite drunk. "Samantha, you hate me, don't you?" Fueled by alcohol, I finally asked the difficult question. No, that's not true," she said, looking away. "But you dislike men, right? It's pretty well known among the male employees." I pressed further. Samantha sighed. "I'm embarrassed to be seen that way, especially as a manager. I didn't realize I was doing it." Then, she began to tell me why she was cold towards men. Her height had always been a complex for her. She had been tall since childhood, reaching her current height in middle school. Since boys develop later, all of them were shorter than her, and rather than seeing her as a girl, some even mockingly called her tall girl. Samantha had given up on being treated like a girl. However, in high school, things changed. Boys taller than Samantha started to appear. She became close to a 6'1" boy from the basketball team. On Valentine's Day, she bravely confessed her feelings. But he rejected her, saying, "Sorry, I think girls should be at most 5'7". That became a trauma for me. I've been uncomfortable around tall boys ever since. I thought it was a terrible story. Many understand that it's wrong to insult someone's appearance with words like fat or ugly, but why don't they realize that negatively commenting on someone's height can be just as hurtful? Then Samantha muttered softly, You prefer shorter girls, don't you, John? No, I actually think I prefer taller women. It's more like they make me feel at ease. Samantha looked surprised, so I explained that everyone in my family is tall, and even my mother is 5'8". I grew up thinking my mother was cool. Does that make me sound like a mama's boy? Samantha shook her head. There are people like that, huh? She looked genuinely happy. It was the first time I had seen her smile so naturally, and she was so cute that my heart started racing. After that, Samantha and I began to go out for drinks occasionally. Although the atmosphere never got romantic, we did start talking more informally like friends in the bar. Then one day, I was called in by Mr. Smith, the company president. The atmosphere didn't seem negative, so I headed to the president's office without any particular expectations. I was even casually hoping it might be about a promotion. I was offered a seat on the sofa and sat down. Mr. Smith, sitting opposite me, held something. Curious, I looked closely, and inside was a photo of a woman. Photo. Do you have someone you're seeing, John? No, I don't. Then, Mr. Smith said with a smile. You remember that delivery you made out of state? The young lady there seems to have fallen for you at first sight. How about a matchmaking meeting? I was so surprised that I was at a loss for words. That young and pretty girl fell for me. Unbelievable. It's sudden, so I know it's shocking. Take some time to think about it. He handed me a file, which I accepted. There were resume and other photos of the woman. The woman in the photo was wearing a beige, elegant dress and was indeed very beautiful. She was only 28. Why would she be interested in someone 10 years older? Marriage with such a pretty girl. At that thought, Samantha's face came to my mind. What would she think if I went for this matchmaking? I returned to my desk. Hey, John, what's up? You're zoning out. Is that photos? You're not really going for a matchmaking, are you? Shoot. Mike had noticed. He quickly snatched the file from me and checked the contents. Well, she's gorgeous, and only 28. I'm so jealous. Mike exclaimed loudly, unaware that Samantha was nearby. I hurriedly took back the file from him. No, I haven't decided yet. But you'll go for it, right? You don't have a girlfriend, do you? Well, yeah, but... At that moment, Samantha quietly stood up and walked out. Concerned, I quickly followed her. Samantha, I called out to her as she was about to leave, and she stopped, looking down. John, are you going for the matchmaking? Well, that's... I clearly didn't want to do it. Because I'm in love with Samantha. But would Samantha accept my feelings? I wasn't sure. After all, Samantha and I are too different. Then she said something unbelievable. Please, turn it down. I involuntarily asked, what? She turned around and looked up at me. Her eyes were moist, and her cheeks were flushed red. Please turn down the matchmaking. I like you, John. No way. Samantha likes me. Samantha, beautiful, smart, with an outstanding figure, likes someone like me. Is that really, truly true? When I asked her seriously, Samantha nodded affirmatively. My heart felt warm with excitement. It was my first time experiencing mutual feelings with a woman, and I felt an overwhelming joy. I like you too, Samantha. Will you be my girlfriend? I took Samantha's hand, and with tears in her voice, she nodded, yes. Yay. Congratulations, Samantha. John, you actually won Samantha's heart. That's amazing. To my surprise, the sales team started appearing in the corridor. You guys were watching. I was so flustered remembering my own words. Samantha, too, crouched down, saying, I'm so embarrassed, I wish I could disappear. Keep it down, everyone. Let's get back to work. I tried to calm the commotion. But the women surrounded Samantha, excitedly chatting. Don't quit your job even if you get married. John, you owe us a treat now. Mike playfully hit me. Get back to work, all of you. What's all this fuss about? Mr. Smith, the president, even showed up. Shoot, just after the matchmaking proposal, and now I've decided to date Samantha. This is awkward. As I panicked, Mike reported to Mr. Smith. Samantha and John are starting a serious relationship with marriage in mind. Let's celebrate as a company. No, we're not talking about marriage yet. Is that so? Mr. Smith asked seriously. Oh no, is he angry? I stepped forward and bowed deeply to Mr. Smith. I'm sorry, it just happened now. I want to seriously date Samantha, so I must decline the earlier proposal. I braced myself for a scolding, but Mr. Smith laughed heartily. I always thought you two would be a good match. I never expected it to actually happen. Maybe I became a Cupid of love. He easily blessed us, leaving me relieved. I'll handle the other party, don't worry. Congratulations, he said, placing a hand on my shoulder. Thank you, I nodded firmly. When I told my parents about my first ever girlfriend, they were overjoyed and insisted on meeting her. Reluctantly, I invited Samantha to my parents' house. Wow, your mother is so beautiful. Samantha seemed mesmerized by my mother. I'm not bragging, but my mom is beautiful. I don't look like her at all. Samantha, you played basketball, right? I played until high school too. Really? But I quit in my freshman year. I injured my knee ligament, and even though it healed, I was scared of hurting it again. I understand. I hurt my knee too. They instantly hit it off with a common topic. Did your dad play sports too? Yes, he was in the same basketball team in middle school and confessed to me back then. My mom started reminiscing. Oh boy, spare me, I thought, but Samantha played along, saying, wow, making a childhood love work out all the way to marriage is amazing. By the way, did John play any sports? The conversation turned to me, making me gulp. Haha. In our family, John was the only one not good at sports. He didn't do any sports, always playing video games, my mom revealed. You still love video games, right? They were getting along too well. Really noisy. But both seemed natural, not forced, getting along well. Your blouse is lovely. Where did you buy it? Samantha shifted to fashion talk. Both being well above average height, they shared the common struggle of finding clothes. Seeing them get along so well, I felt relieved. Today is our date. I'm meeting Samantha in front of the cinema. From a distance, I saw her approaching. But she seemed different. Almost everyone she passed turned to look at her. The reason was her footwear. Samantha was wearing high-heeled sandals. Already tall, with heels, she was over 5'11". Her long legs and slim jeans were eye-catching. No wonder people were surprised. Sorry to keep you waiting. Standing in front of me, Samantha's face was at the same height as mine. This feels new. Hee hee, we're the same height now. I always wanted to try these shoes at least once, but does it look weird? I shook my head. You look amazing. Samantha smiled shyly and said, thank you. We walked side by side, naturally holding hands. I'm glad I met you, John. I feel like you'll accept me no matter what, Samantha chuckled. Yes, you can grow as much as you want. Lean on me when you're tired. I'll always be a big tree for you. It was our 15th wedding anniversary on that day. Having coffee with my wife after dining at the restaurant where I proposed to her, she dropped a bombshell. I've fallen for someone else. I know it's terrible to say this on a day like this, but I can't keep it secret from you any longer. I never expected that at the very place where I asked her to marry me. Fallen for someone else. She said nothing, just kept her head down. I was at a loss, looking up at the ceiling. But then, I suddenly realized she had been acting suspicious. My wife, who used to be frugal, started buying expensive makeup products and owning designer bags, one after another. And she would just leave them in our bedroom. "Are those designer bags you have at home the gifts from him?" At my question, my wife trembled. It seemed that was the case. "I'm sorry. He gave them to me as presents. We were just friends at first, but we both realized we were serious about each other. I don't know if I'll end up with him, but I can't stay with you, feeling like this." The word divorce crossed my mind. She was in love with someone I never met. Didn't she vow to stand beside me for life's ups and downs? After her confession, everything seemed pointless. I felt like an idiot and didn't even feel like getting angry at her. "Fine, let's split up. I don't want to know who you're in love with. I don't even want to talk to you. Don't you ever show up in front of me." My wife nodded silently at those words. I sighed deeply, took some money out of my wallet, and put it on the table. "I don't want you coming home with me. Just go straight to your parents' house. I'll send all your belongings later. But I just need some time alone. I can't stand to see your face right now." Hearing that, my wife grabbed the money I left on the table, and she quickly left the restaurant. After she was gone, I took a sip of the cold coffee, feeling empty. She was someone I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, but sadly, I'll never see her again. She broke my heart and shattered it into pieces. That was the night I parted ways with the woman I loved. Soon after, I sold our house and moved into a cheap apartment. I used work as a convenient excuse for not taking care of myself. I would eat takeaways almost every night as I had no time to cook for myself. My shirts were always wrinkled as ironing was time-consuming. I would often sleep over in the office as I couldn't be bothered going home. One day, my boss, Bob, called me in his office. "Listen, ever since your wife left, your life's been a mess. I'm sorry. Maybe I should find myself a new wife." I joked in response. "A new wife? All right, I'll find one for you. Actually, there is a girl I've been meaning to introduce to you." "What?" "She's a relative of mine, a really nice girl." "Wait a minute, please." Bob wasn't listening to me and was already making a call on his cell phone. "Hello, Emily. Are you available to talk right now?" I was stunned as Bob, even over the phone, cheerfully chatted with her in front of me. "Great. Can you come over tomorrow morning?" After hanging up the phone, Bob looked at me with a big smile. "Her name is Emily. She'll stop by your house tomorrow morning. I've given her your address. Why don't you ask her to make breakfast for you?" "What are you talking about? Of course, it's not free." Bob started to tell me about Emily while laughing. "She's been job hunting for a while. I told her she'd get paid by you for looking after you, so I'll leave it with you." "Are you serious? That sounds like hiring a housekeeper." I felt dizzy at Bob's outrageous suggestion. But maybe he was just joking about finding a new wife for me. Yep, that must be it. "She's a good girl, so if you like her, consider proposing to her. She's a very loyal person. She wouldn't leave you no matter what." "Please, stop joking about things like that," I said to Bob, and then hurried off to the client meeting. After the meeting, I sent a report email to Bob, although I was exhausted. I dreaded going home. Maybe I'll stay at the office again tonight. Or should I find a cheap motel to stay at? As I was contemplating and walking through the streets, a young woman approached me. "Excuse me, are you John?" "Yes, I am. And you are?" "Nice to meet you. I'm Emily, Bob's relative." She was the woman Bob called earlier today. "Nice to meet you too. But how did you find me here?" I was so confused that I didn't know what was going on. "Uncle Bob told me you'd be around here somewhere. I happened to be nearby, so I thought I'd come to say hello. Looking forward to working for you from tomorrow," she said with a smile. I could only smile back wryly. Then, The next day. Good morning, John. She appeared at my front door. Of course, I couldn't just send her away. What would Bob think if I did? So I invited her in and let her make me breakfast. It had been a while since I had homemade food. Wow, bacon and eggs. The bacon is perfectly crispy. I'm glad you liked the way I cooked it. She chuckled at my words. I looked at her and said, "It's been a while since I had proper breakfast. That might be why you enjoyed it so much." Thank you. I felt a sense of happiness and contentment. It's been so long since I've had such good food. You're just exaggerating. No, really. $10 an hour is not enough for this. I should pay you more. No, the current rate is good enough for me. But that doesn't feel right to me. At my words, she slowly shook her head. I'm unemployed at the moment. I can improve my cooking skills by doing this and even get paid for it. So I couldn't, and I wouldn't ask for a pay rise, she said with a bright smile. By the way, why did you agree to look after an old guy like me? Her expression changed instantly. She turned her face away from me and gave a strained smile. That's because I just admire someone like you, John. That's nice to hear, but I could tell she was lying. Her gentle demeanor became rather tense now. I felt something wasn't right. Is there something you're hiding from me? No, not at all. After saying that, I'm sorry. She suddenly raised her voice. What's wrong? I had absolutely no idea why she apologized to me. The truth is, the man your ex-wife fell in love with was my father. What? My father left my mother to be with your ex-wife. Since then, my mother has been mentally unstable, needing someone by her side. I quit my job to stay home with her. I was at a loss for words. So, Emily was the daughter of the man my ex-wife fell in love with. Unbelievable. It seemed that her father disappeared soon after I had the last conversation with my ex-wife at the restaurant on our anniversary. What a selfish man your father was. Instead of leaving you and your mother the way he did, he should have had discussion with your mother and get everything sorted before he started a new life with someone else. I felt sorry for Emily, who was looking anxious. I don't know what Bob was thinking when he thought of her as my potential wife, but this was just too much. Why did you agree to do this? I wanted to apologize. Apologize for what? You haven't done anything wrong. She shook her head. If I had stopped my father from seeing your ex-wife, you wouldn't have had to go through the divorce. My mother always blames me for not stopping him. Tears rolled down her cheeks. At that moment, I found myself hugging her tightly. John, I'm sorry, but let me say this. Stop blaming yourself. What your mother says is wrong. It wasn't your fault. Thank you. She cried quietly in my arms. I was sad, but at the same time, I felt anger towards her father, who abandoned such a devoted daughter just to be with someone else and never returned. Emily, you didn't do anything wrong. The one who is to blame is your father. He should have taken responsibility for his actions. She looked at me weakly. I just don't know what to do anymore. My father's gone, and my mother blames me for what happened. You don't have to do anything. If it's too hard for you to be at home with your mother, you can stay at my place. Thank you, but I really shouldn't impose myself on you, she said hesitantly. That was when I came up with a brilliant idea. Would it be all right if I met your mother? My mother? Emily looked surprised. Yes, maybe your mother needs someone to talk to and to share her feelings with. I think I can help her out because I know exactly what she's going through. You are probably right, Emily agreed. I was certain that her mother and I would understand each other very well. Or that was what I thought anyway. A few days later, I met Emily's mother, Sharon, and we talked about many things. I always knew it wasn't Emily's fault, yet I took it out on her. I never thought there would be someone out there who could empathize with me. When we're overwhelmed with our own issues, We tend to forget others are there for you. Sharon nodded weakly at my words. Thank you so much for coming today. I shouldn't be staying home all day, crying and feeling sorry for myself. I may just start looking for work. That would be better for Emily too. I agree. Maybe going somewhere with your daughter for a change of scenery would be good. She's been troubled ever since her father left. As we spoke, Sharon hesitantly continued. I know it's a bold request, but would you be kind enough to take her out? I've heard her so much that I should distance myself from her while I get my life sorted. Looking at her sad smile, I suddenly had an inexplicable feeling of sorrow. I understand. If there's anything I can do, just let me know. Thank you. She smiled at me. I smiled back at her. Emily continued to come to my house and help me with domestic chores. Not only that, we would go for a walk together to the nearby park and sometimes visit art galleries and aquariums and such. Gradually, she began to spend more time at my house. And we ended up getting married. I absolutely adore Emily. Sharon, who had reconciled with her, was very happy to see us together. Today, the kitchen is filled with the aroma of Emily's cooking. The sound of her chopping food with a kitchen knife was music to my ears. She happily said to me, I never thought I'd be your wife. I'm surprised too, to meet and marry someone 20 years younger than I am. I thank Uncle Bob for his crazy idea. Without that, we wouldn't have even met each other. Yes, I do too. Bob introduced Emily to me, thinking that two people abandoned by their family or partner would be able to understand each other, and that could help recover from the pain caused by the desertion. But he never expected us to get married. Life is really unpredictable. Bob said, laughing. Maybe we should ask Bob to make a speech at our wedding. That's a good idea, Emily said with a big smile. I smiled back at her. I'm really looking forward to our wedding next month.